All right, so going deep on this thing called waking lucid.
Yeah.
It's this method, right, for like analyzing events in your life that keep happening over and over again. And get this, it's based on dream stuff, like dream work and improv techniques.
Interesting.
Yeah, right? I first heard about it on this podcast called Meditation Happy Hour. The host, Christopher McClure, he uses it and uncovers all this wild stuff about himself.
So, like, how does that even work?
Well, he breaks these events down, like way down. He finds the characters and even the objects involved. And then he figures out like their goals and what's stopping them. And then get this, he writes a whole dialogue between them to like figure out what it all means and how to maybe, change things up.
A dialogue between objects and people.
Yeah, it sounds kind of out there, but it's actually based on the structured framework.
Right.
Yeah.
The Enneagram, it acts as a framework.
Oh, okay. So like personality types and stuff?
No, not for personality typing. It's more about like organizing all the different elements in this waking lucid analysis.
Yeah. Okay, I'm with you. So like what are the key pieces of this framework?
Well, you start with the narrator, which it's not always as straightforward as you might think.
Right.
It could be you, or it could be something more abstract, like money, as we'll see later.
Oh, interesting.
Then there's the setting, which could be a real place, or like more of a symbolic concept, like cyberspace.
I'm following.
And then, of course, you have your characters, like the people or entities that are involved. And this is where it gets really interesting. We also look at objects as characters.
Wait, objects as characters. So like my phone could be a character.
Exactly. We're basically giving these objects, agency, treating them like they're active players with their own wants and obstacles. And this can lead to some pretty unexpected realizations.
Okay, now that would definitely challenge how I'm seeing things. So how do we figure out what these characters, whether it's a person or my phone, what are they trying to do in this whole recurring event?
So each character, including the objects, right, they all have objectives, things they're trying to achieve within this repeating event. And then you have the obstacles, which are things that prevent them from reaching those objectives.
Gotcha. So like, let's say my character is a traffic light. Its objective might be to control the flow of traffic, right? But then that also creates an obstacle for someone who's late for work. Are we on the same page?
Exactly. It's about, noticing these forces at play, even the simple ones, and how they all kind of interact.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got the narrator, setting, characters, objects, objectives, and obstacles. What comes next?
So once you've got all of that laid out, then you move on to the plot, which is just a quick summary of the event. And then this is where we get to the heart of Waking Lucid, the dialogue.
Hold on. So we're not just like retelling the event as it happened. We're making these characters like my phone and the traffic light actually talk to each other.
That's right. It's not about, recreating reality word for word. It's more about allowing these characters to interact and reveal some deeper stuff, some deeper layers of meaning.
Okay, now that's getting interesting. So in Christopher's case, he was struggling with this frustrating experience trying to get an A to P verification for his business.
Right.
How did that look through this waking lucid lens?
Oh, it's a fascinating case. He identified cyberspace as the setting, and he had all these characters like tech experts and advisors and even things like the state, the IRS, and even money itself.
Oh, past life karma. That's intense. It seems like this waking lucid can really go deep.
It can.
Okay.
And just by noticing that obstacle, Christopher was already like one step closer to addressing it.
That's true. So what about those other characters, like the software and the AI receptionist?
Right. So he had all these other characters too, like the software he was using and even the AI receptionist he was trying to build. And they all had their own objectives and obstacles. It's all about understanding like the whole complex web of things influencing a situation.
I'm starting to see how helpful this could be for like understanding situations that just keep popping up in your life, But before we get too into Christopher's example, you mentioned this character wheel earlier. What exactly is that?
Oh, yeah. It's a tool for getting a deeper understanding of each character, even the non-human ones, right? Like it asks questions like, who are they? What are their big traits? Why do they act the way they do? How are they feeling? It really helps to bring those characters to life and gets you ready for that dialogue stage.
So it's more than just like writing down names. It's about understanding what drives them and how they could maybe even change.
Yes, and that's what makes the dialogue so insightful.
This is also fascinating. Let's hear more about Christopher's experience. Like, how did he actually use this waking lucid to figure out his A to P challenge?
Yeah, his example is really insightful. It shows how this waking lucid process can work in real life.
Perfect. Tell me everything. Like, who were the specific characters he was working with, and how did he use this framework to break it all down?
Okay, so besides himself, he had these tech experts, Neo and Russell, and this woman named Emma who was advising him. And then it gets really interesting. He brought in these bigger concepts like the state, the IRS, the actual A to P verification itself, the software he was using, and even money.
Wow, I never would have thought to include, like, the IRS as a character. That's some out-of-the-box thinking. So what were some of the objectives and obstacles he found?
His main objective was, like, financial comfort. But the obstacle he discovered, it was incredibly personal. It was past life karma related to money.
Whoa, past life karma. That's pretty heavy stuff to uncover. It sounds like this method can really help you understand yourself on, like, a much deeper level.
It can. And just by acknowledging it, he was already starting to move past it.
That makes sense. So what about the other characters? What were their objectives and obstacles?
Well, for each one, he identified those things. For example, the software's objective was to, like, facilitate the process, but the obstacle was, all the complex regulations around A to P verification. The AI receptionist wanted to be like a door knocker for his business, but the obstacle was getting that verification.
Right, right.
And the state's objective was to regulate, and the IRS's was to catalog.
Yeah. So he basically created this whole map of all the forces at play in this situation. Did he actually write out that dialogue between these characters? And what did he learn from doing that?
Well, he was planning to write this dialogue between money, the AI receptionist, and the A to P verification, but he didn't go into the details in that particular episode.
Oh, man, that's a bummer. I'm dying to know, like, what kind of conversation money and the AI receptionist would have. But I guess that speaks to the mystery and the potential of this dialogue stage, right?
Exactly. It's where those really unexpected insights can come out. It's about letting those deeper layers of meaning kind of bubble up to the surface.
This is all so fascinating. I can already see how this waking lucid could apply to so many different situations. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's explore this dialogue process a little bit more. What are some of the key elements that make this stage so powerful? And what are some things we should watch out for?
All right, let's dive into that dialogue stage. That's really where the magic happens with Waking Lucid.
I'm all ears. It seems like this is like the culmination of everything we've talked about so far, bringing all those characters and how they relate to each other, bringing it all to life.
You got it. And remember, it's not about recreating what happened word for word. It's about getting to the core of each character, what they want, and what's frustrating them.
So like in Christopher's example, a dialogue between money, the AI receptionist, and the A to P could lead to some pretty crazy revelations.
Precisely. Imagine money, maybe personified as a flowing river, expressing this desire to support Christopher's business. And then you have the AI receptionist, all eager to do its job as this welcoming presence, but it's held back by the A to P, which you could imagine as a guarded gatekeeper.
Okay, I like that image. It's like giving these unseen forces a voice, the forces that are shaping what's going on. But how do you go about writing this dialogue? Do you just like let your imagination go wild?
Well, imagination is key, but the character wheel we talked about, that can be a big help.
Right.
It helps make sure your characters are well-developed and grounded in the situation. You're not just making stuff up. You're drawing on what you've learned from analyzing the event.
Right, so it's like a mix of creativity and analysis.
Exactly. And as you're writing this dialogue, pay attention to how the characters interact with each other. What are the points of tension? Where do their objectives clash?
I see. So for instance, in Christopher's case, the dialogue might show that the A to P, even though it seems like an obstacle, it's actually trying to like protect businesses from being exploited or misused. It's just like doing its job.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
The dialogue can often help us see things from a different perspective, even empathize with characters we thought were the bad guys,
So it's not just about understanding the situation. It's about changing how we see it, right?
Absolutely. And this shift in perspective can be really powerful. It can help us break free from those repeating patterns that are holding us back.
This waking lucid technique seems so versatile. Do you think it could apply to like any recurring event in someone's life?
Oh, absolutely. Whether it's a relationship that's giving you a hard time or a job that's frustrating or even recurring dreams, This method can help you understand it better. It's all about seeing the patterns, understanding the forces at work, and then figuring out how to change those patterns.
This has been so eye-opening. I'm ready to start trying this out in my own life. Do you have any final thoughts for our listener before we wrap up?
I would say remember that the most powerful insights can come from the most unexpected places.
Yeah, okay.
Embrace the weirdness of it all, give those objects a voice, and just see what you discover. You might be surprised by what you find.
Do you have any final thoughts for our listener before we wrap up?
I would say remember that the most powerful insights can come from the most unexpected places.
Okay.
Embrace the weirdness of it all, give those objects a voice, and just see what you discover. You might be surprised by what you find.
Any last words of wisdom for our listener before we go?
Trust the process.
Yeah.
It might feel strange or uncomfortable at times, but that's often a sign that you're onto something meaningful.
Yeah.
Be patient with yourself, stay curious, and see what unfolds.
Yeah.
You might be amazed by what you discover.
So to our listeners, we want you to think about this. What recurring event in your life could you apply this method to? What hidden characters might be at play in your world, just waiting to be given a voice? And could using Waking Lucid help you break free from those negative patterns and create the life you truly desire? I'm still thinking about everything we've covered about Waking Lucid, you know? It's like a whole new way of looking at things, seeing all these connections between people, events, and even objects. Like, they're all linked.
Yeah, it really challenges us to rethink what's actually affecting our lives. You know, we tend to focus on what's obvious, the stuff on the surface. But Waking Lucid, it encourages us to go deeper and look at the unseen forces that are at play.
It's like we've been looking at this flat image, and suddenly we can see the depth, the whole picture.
That's a great way to put it. It's about expanding our awareness and understanding how everything's connected.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some key things you hope our listeners will take away from this?
Well, I think the most important takeaway is that perspective is everything.
Hmm.
Waking Lucid shows us how we view a situation. It really changes how we experience it. By shifting our perspective, we can open up new possibilities and find new solutions.
So it's not about finding the right answer. It's more about exploring different perspectives, seeing things from multiple angles.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to embrace those aha moments, those sudden insights that can come from this process. Be open to new ways of understanding yourself and the world around you.
Those aha moments are what make it so exciting. It's like solving a puzzle or uncovering a hidden treasure. I love that.
And lastly, I would say, don't be afraid to get creative. Give those objects a voice and just see where your imagination takes you.
This has been amazing. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners as they embark on their own Waking Lucid journey?
Just trust the process.
Yeah.
It might feel weird or uncomfortable at times, but often that means you're onto something meaningful. Be patient with yourself, stay curious, and just see what happens. You might be surprised by what you find.
So to our listeners, we encourage you to think about this. What's a recurring event in your life that you could use this method on? What hidden characters might be at play in your world just waiting for their chance to speak? And could using Waking Lucid help you break free from those negative patterns and create the life you've always wanted? Until next time, keep diving deep and keep exploring those hidden depths within yourself and the world around you.